The phone call felt like a tiny, irritating pebble in my shoe. Annoying, but manageable. I was in the middle of reviewing quarterly reports for a portfolio boutique hotels in Southeast Asia, a task that required the kind of intense focus that usually made the outside world dissolve into a low hum. But this particular pebble was named Isabella Martins, and she had a uniquely grating quality that could pierce through even the thickest wall of concentration. Ms. Thompson. She began, her voice dripping with the kind of syrupy condescension that only truly insecure people master. I'm calling about Sophia's wedding. We have a slight complication. I leaned back in my worn office chair, the fox leather creaking in protest. My office wasn't in a glittering high-rise. It was a converted guest room in the modest 3-bedroom house I'd owned for 15 years. To the world, and more importantly, to my family, I was just Emma. Quiet, unassuming Emma, who ran a small, vaguely successful online consulting business. The kind of person who drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic not because she has to, but because it's practical. Isabella, I said, my tone even. What's the issue? Well, the Grand View Estate is a premier venue, as you know. To maintain its ambience, we require certain standards. I've just been informed by our vendors that the lighting package you selected is simply inadequate. And for a party of this size, the standard security detail is, frankly, a liability. I could hear her tapping her perfectly manicured nails on a desk. So, to ensure Sophia's day is as magical as she deserves, we'll need to upgrade to the premium lighting and enhanced security package. It's an additional $50,000. She paused, letting the number hang in the air like a bad smell. I can, of course, break that into 2 payments if that's easier for your family. There it was. The subtle, yet not so subtle dig. My family wasn't poor, but my father was a retired teacher and my mother a librarian. My younger sister, Sophia, was a brilliant graphic designer, but just starting out. Her fiancé, Liam, came from old money, the kind of family that probably used $100 bills as napkins. I knew, without a doubt, that his family had been making little comments, asking little questions, all designed to gauge the financial standing of the Thompsons. Isabella's call was just another drop in that bucket of passive-aggressive poison. A younger version of me might have bristled, a flash of anger, a sharp retort. But I had learned long ago that the most powerful response is often the quietest one. Anger was a wildfire, destructive and hard to control. Calmness was a river, carving canyons over time. $50,000 for lights and a few extra guards sounds steep. Isabella, I said calmly, could you please provide an itemized invoice from these vendors? A delicate sniffle on the other end. Ms. Thompson, this is standard practice for high-end events. It's a matter of quality and safety. I'm simply trying to prevent any embarrassment for your sister on her big day. We wouldn't want the venue to look anything less than spectacular, would we? The unspoken threat was clear: pay up, or your sister's wedding will be second rate, a fact Liam's family would surely notice. Isabella was leveraging my family's insecurity for a quick payday. It was a classic scam, inflating costs with phantom services, and it was, to put it mildly, sloppy. I understand your concern for quality, I said, my voice maintaining its placid surface. I think it would be best if I discussed this directly with the owner of the Grand View Estate. Could you please arrange that for me? There was a moment of stunned silence. I had clearly deviated from her script. People like me were supposed to either protest weekly or cave under the pressure. We weren't supposed to ask to speak to the manager. The owner, she stammered. That's highly irregular. They don't involve themselves in client-level disputes. I am the sole point of contact. I'm sure, I said, a hint of steel now entering my voice. But for a $50,000 discrepancy, I insist. Please have the owner or their direct representative meet me at the estate. Say, 2:00 this afternoon. I'm sure they'll want to resolve this potential overcharge promptly. Before she could protest further, I ended the call. The pebble was no longer in my shoe. I had picked it up, and I was about to see just how far I could throw it. I swiveled in my chair and dialed another number, this one on my private, encrypted line. Marcus, I said when he answered. Emma. Everything all right? You're not supposed to be calling me on this line unless the world is ending. Marcus Reynolds, my co-o, was the only person on the planet besides my lawyer who knew the full extent of my life. He was my gatekeeper, my bulldog, and occasionally my conscience. The world isn't ending, but Isabella Martinez's career might be, I replied. I need you to do something for me. Clear your schedule at 2 p.m. and meet me at the Grand View Estate and make sure the main conference room is available. Marcus was silent for a beat. The Grand View? Don't tell me. The wedding planner. The very same. She's trying to tack on a $50,000 fee for premium lighting and enhanced security. I could almost hear Marcus' grim smile through the phone. Oh, she is? Is she? And I'm guessing she's using our exclusive in-house lighting company, Radiant Events, and our own security firm, Uigas Protection. The very same ones we acquired last year and rolled into the Prestige Holdings portfolio. I confirmed. Prestige Holdings was the name of my empire, the parent company for a collection of 16 luxury venues, 3 event service companies, and a handful of other high-end hospitality businesses, an empire worth a cool $2.8 billion. An empire I had built from nothing, brick by silent brick, while my family thought I was helping people optimize their small business websites. 3 years ago, I'd bought the Grand View Estate and 15 other properties in a quiet, off-market deal. The previous owner was retiring, and I saw a diamond in the rough. I'd spent 2 years and $100 million renovating them, turning them into the jewels of the event industry. I kept my ownership anonymous, buried under layers of corporate structuring. It was easier that way. It allowed me to see the truth of my operations, to see how my employees treated the people they thought didn't matter. So what's the play? Marcus asked, his voice eager. Isabella has requested a meeting with the owner, I said. I think it's time the owner showed up. Just tell her the boss is flying in to handle it personally. Let her sweat a little. Consider it done. This is going to be better than Shakespeare? Marcus chuckled. Just make sure Sophia doesn't find out. Not yet. As if on cue, my personal cell phone, the one my family had the number for, buzzed. It was Sophia. I switched from CEO mode back to big sister mode in a heartbeat. Hey, Soph. Everything okay? Emma, I'm freaking out. Her voice was tight with anxiety. Isabella just called me. She said there are extra costs and that you were difficult. Lime's mother is here, and I think she overheard. She just made a comment about cutting corners. I'm so mortified. Are we going to have to pay it? Dad will have a fit. My heart ached for her. This was supposed to be the happiest time of her life, and it was being poisoned by petty snobbery and financial stress. The money my parents had given her for the wedding, a generous sum they had saved for years, had actually come from me. I had funneled it to them through a series of investment returns from a fund I'd set up for them a decade ago. They had no idea. They just thought their modest portfolio had done exceptionally well. Listen to me, Sophia, I said. my voice firm but gentle. Do not worry about the money. Do not worry about Isabella. And for God's sake, do not worry about what Liam's mother thinks. I am handling it. I promise you everything will be perfect. Just focus on your dress fitting. I'll see you later this afternoon. You're sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. I've got this. I hung up the phone and stared out the window at the quiet suburban street. Isabella Martins thought she was dealing with a meek, financially strapped family. She thought she was squeezing an easy 50 grand out of people who were out of their league. She had no idea she was trying to scam the woman who owned the league, the stadium, and the very ground it was built on. It was time for the silent CEO to make some noise. I arrived at the Grand View Estate at precisely 1:50 p.m., driving my trusty 2013 Honda Civic. Its paint was a little faded, and there was a permanent coffee stain on the passenger seat, but it ran like a dream. As I pulled into the visitor parking lot, I spotted Isabella near the entrance, talking animatedly on her phone. She was impeccably dressed in a sharp, ridiculously expensive-looking suit, a stark contrast to my simple jeans, blouse, and comfortable flats. She saw my car. I watched as her eyes did a quick, dismissive sweep, cataloging the make, model, and age of the vehicle in a fraction of a second. A smirk played on her lips as she turned her back to me, but not before I could hear a snippet of her conversation. If you have to see the car the sister drives, it's a relic. Honestly, I don't know how they're even affording this place. I'm telling you, they're stretched so thin. I just smiled to myself, grabbed my worn leather tote bag, and walked towards the main entrance. I let the valet, a young man named Kevin whose family I'd helped with medical bills last Christmas, greet me with a respectful nod. He knew who I was, as did most of the core staff, but they were all bound by ironclad NDAs and a fierce sense of loyalty I had worked hard to earn. To anyone else, I was just another visitor. I found my way to the main conference room. It was a magnificent space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's famous rose gardens. Marcus was already there, looking every bit the high-powered executive in his tailored suit. He gave me a subtle wink. Isabella was pacing near the windows, her phone now put away. My sister, Sophia, sat at the enormous mahogany table, looking pale and anxious. She jumped up when she saw me. "Emma, what's going on?" Isabella said the owner was coming, that this was some huge deal. "Don't worry, Soph," I said, giving her a reassuring hug. "We're just sorting out a billing issue." Isabella turned, her expression one of extreme impatience. "Sophia, darling, perhaps you and your sister could wait outside. This is a private meeting with the owner's representative. It's a delicate financial matter." She looked at me. "Frankly, your presence isn't required." "Oh, I think it is," I said pleasantly, taking a seat at the table. Sophia, looking confused, sat beside me. Isabella sighed dramatically. "Fine. But let's be clear. The $50,000 fee is non-negotiable. It's a requirement from the venue's ownership." Right on key, the double doors of the conference room opened. A junior executive I recognized, a bright young woman named Chloe, stepped in. "Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Martinez," she said, her voice formal. "The owner has arrived." Isabella immediately straightened her suit, jacket, and plastered a brilliant, fake smile on her face. Her eyes were fixed on the doorway, expecting, I suppose, some tycoon in a $1,000 suit to stride in. Marcus remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back, a picture of calm professionalism. I took a sip of the water that had been set out. Then I pushed my chair back, stood up, and walked to the head of the table. I placed my old tote bag on the gleaming mahogany and sat down in the leather chair that was reserved for the head of the board. Silence. It was a beautiful, perfect, profound silence. Sophia's jaw had literally dropped. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, flickered between me, Marcus, and the empty doorway. Isabella's smile froze, then slowly curdled into a mask of utter confusion. "What do you think you're doing?" Isabella finally sputtered, her voice a harsh whisper. "That's the owner's chair." "Get up before they get here." Marcus cleared his throat. "Martinez," he said, his voice resonating in the quiet room. "The owner is here." He gestured towards me. Isabella stared. She looked at my simple blouse, my faded jeans, my beat-up tote bag. Then she looked back at my face. A wave of comprehension and horror began to dawn in her eyes, but she fought it, clinging to her disbelief. "You?" She scoffed, a hysterical little laugh escaping her lips. "Don't be ridiculous. She's the owner of the Grandview estate." "You're joking." I leaned forward, placing my hands flat on the table. "I'm not joking, Isabella," I said, my voice no longer quiet or unassuming. It was the voice I used in boardrooms, the voice that had closed billion-dollar deals. "I don't own just the Grandview estate. I own Prestige Holdings, and you, Ms. Martins, have just become a very significant liability to my company." Sophia made a small, choking sound. "Emma, what?" I gave my sister a quick, reassuring glance before turning my full attention back to the rapidly palling wedding planner. "Let's start with the $50,000 fee." I began, my tone crisp and clinical. "The one for premium lighting and enhanced security. It's a fascinating figure, especially since I also own the exclusive lighting vendor for this venue, Radiant Events, as well as the security firm, Aegis Protection. I personally reviewed and approved the standard event packages. They are more than adequate. In fact, they are priced at 30% below market rate to provide value to our clients, not to gouge them." I slid a tablet across the table. "This is a transcript of your call to my co-o, Marcus, yesterday morning. In it, you attempt to negotiate a finder's fee for bringing what you called a whale of a client to our lighting and security services. Services which, I should remind you, are mandatory for all events held here. You were, in essence, trying to get a kickback from my own companies for services you were already contractually obligated to use." Isabella's face had gone from pale to a blotchy, sick-looking gray. She stared at the tablet as if it were a venomous snake. That's taken out of context," she stammered. "Is it?" I continued, my voice relentless. "Then let's talk about context. This," I swiped to a new screen, "is a copy of an email you sent to your assistant 2 weeks ago. In it, you outline a strategy to maximize revenue from the Compson wedding, specifically mentioning that the family seems insecure about their financial standing compared to the grooms and would be susceptible to last-minute premium up charges. You called it the desperation fee, a charming turn of phrase." Sophia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She looked at Isabella with eyes full of hurt and betrayal. "And finally," I said, delivering the final blow, "there's the matter of professional conduct. You see, when I renovated this estate, I installed a state-of-the-art security system. It covers every common area for the safety and protection of our guests and staff. The microphones are extremely sensitive. They pick up everything." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "They picked up your delightful conversation on the terrace yesterday, where you described my sister's chosen wedding dress as something a desperate housewife from a cheap suburb would wear. They picked up your phone call in the parking lot 10 minutes ago, where you called my family stretched thin and mocked my car. You seem to have a lot of opinions, Isabella. The problem is you've been sharing them on private property owned by the very people you're insulting. The last bit of fight drained out of Isabella. She sank into her chair, her impeccably dressed facade crumbling to reveal the petty, grasping fraud underneath. She looked small. Ernest, Marnie said, my voice now calm and final. You are fired. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately for gross misconduct and attempted fraud. You will be escorted off the premises. Any outstanding payments for your legitimate services will be settled by our legal team, minus, of course, any damages we see fit to pursue. I looked at Marcus. Marcus, please handle it. Marcus nodded crisply. Clue, if you would. Clue, the junior executive, stepped forward and gestured for Isabella to follow her. But before Isabella could move, Sophia stood up. My little sister, who'd been sitting in silence, now had a fire in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. You. Sophia said to Isabella, her voice shaking with a quiet rage. You made me feel small. You made me feel like my family wasn't good enough. Get out and never ever speak to me or my family again. Isabella, for the first time, looked truly defeated. She didn't say a word as she was led out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Once the doors closed, Sophia turned to me. The anger on her face dissolved, replaced by a million other emotions: confusion, shock, awe, and a little bit of hurt. Emma, she whispered. A $2.8 billion empire. Prestige Holdings. Why? Why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you tell any of us? This was the part I had dreaded. The confrontation was easy. Family was hard. I stood up and walked over to her, pulling her into a hug. She felt stiff in my arms for a moment before melting against me. Come on, I said softly. Let's take a walk in the garden. We have a lot to talk about. We walked through the manicured rose gardens, the afternoon sun warming our faces. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Sophia just held onto my arm, her head spinning, I was sure. When Dad and Mom gave me the money for the wedding, she finally said, her voice quiet, I was so proud. I thought they'd saved every penny. But that was you, wasn't it? The investment returns. I nodded. I set up a fund for them a long time ago. I manage it. I wanted them to have a comfortable retirement without feeling like it was a handout. And this place, she asked, gesturing to the magnificent estate around us. When I picked it, I fell in love with it instantly. You never said a word. That's exactly why I didn't say anything. I explained, stopping by a fountain. I wanted you to pick it because you loved it soft, not because your sister owned it. I didn't want Mick's situation to overshadow your day. I didn't want it to become about me. I took a deep breath. For my whole life, I've been quiet Emma, the reliable one, the boring one, the one who was never going to set the world on fire. Remember when I started my consulting business? Everyone sort of patted me on the head, wishing me luck with my little hobby. No one ever asked what I was actually doing. It was true. While Sophia was the dazzling artist and my brother was the globetrotting adventurer, I was the one who just was. And I had used that. I had leaned into their low expectations. It gave me the freedom to work 18-hour days, to take massive risks, to build my empire in the shadows. I saved every penny I made in my 20s from a soul-crushing tech job, living in a tiny apartment and eating ramen noodles. I invested it all in a single failing hotel. I turned around, I sold it, and bought 3 more. And so on, until my little hobby could buy and sell entire city blocks. I still drive the same car because I hate car shopping and it works just fine. I told her, a small smile on my face. I still live in my little house because my sanctuary, the one place I'm not CEO. It was never about hiding the money, Soph. It was about protecting myself. Protecting us. I wanted you all to see me, Emma, not my bank account. Tears were welling in Sophia's eyes. I had no idea, she whispered. All those times I felt so stressed about money, about what Liam's family thought, and you were just quietly handling everything. That's what big sisters are, I said. She finally looked at me, a real radiant smile breaking through her tears. So, does this mean I can get the premium lighting package? I laughed a real, genuine laugh. Soph, you can have anything you want. I'll buy the lighting company and rename it after you if you want. The wedding was, in a word, perfect. Marcus stepped in and with the new, wonderfully competent wedding planner, executed everything flawlessly. The lighting was spectacular. The security was invisible but absolute. Liam's mother, having gotten wind of what happened, was so obsequiously nice it was almost comical. But the best moment of the day came during the reception. My father, a man of few words, came up to me while I was watching Sophia and Liam dance. Emma, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I owe you an apology. All these years, I thought you were just drifting. I was worried. I never understood. I'm so proud of you, not for the money, but for the woman you've become. You took care of all of us without us even knowing. I just hugged him, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I stayed in the background for the rest of the night, just another guest in a simple dress, watching my family celebrate. I saw Sophia talking to our cousins, her face animated. At one point, she caught my eye from across the room and gave me a smile, a real one, full of a new kind of understanding and love. Later, as the party was winding down, she handed me a small, wrapped gift. It was a silver frame. Inside was a picture of the two of us from when we were kids, sitting on a swing set, my arm around her. Engraved at the bottom were the words, "To the sister who owns the world, but gave me the universe. Thank you." As I drove home later, that night in my trusty old Honda, I thought about my strategy, the one that had made me a billionaire. It was simple, really. Build an empire while being underestimated, amass wealth while living modestly, and claim power while remaining invisible. The next morning, I was back in my home office, coffee in hand, looking at reports. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia on her way to her honeymoon. "Thank you for the best day of my life. I love you," I smiled. The world still saw me as quiet, unassuming Emma, but my sister knew the truth. And for the first time, that felt like more than enough. I was the silent CEO, the quiet billionaire, and the big sister who had just pulled off the wedding of the year. And no one else ever had to know.